everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com. Welcome to the daily futures and crypto market outlook for tomorrow's trading. Tomorrow being the 13th, going on Friday, and you did hear that right, that is Friday the 13th. Kind of an interesting day, especially coming in October. Hard to beat that. Time to bust out some of those old videos, watch some of the horror flicks going on Friday the 13th for October. Oh, I love it. Before we jump on in, as always, make sure to swing on over to slingshotfutures.com, scroll down, and click on the Join the Daily Outlook newsletter. In that newsletter, we're going to be going over this video, of course, but along with that, a bunch of different stocks and different options and cryptos and Forex, and you name it. If it moves, it'll show up in there at some point. Just a great way to kind of get in the know of what's going on for really everything that's happening that we're seeing. Along with that, if you haven't done so already, make sure to go over to the live trade room subscription and trial info and sign up for a free 3-day trial in the room. That's where you can sign up for the live trade room for a couple days, see what we're all about, right? You can hang out with us for a few days, see our screens, see the way that we prep everything, how we go through everything. It's a really good way to get an inside look in the way that everything works and how everything runs. Now, looking at the markets, well. First of all, the euro is cycling off of that original big news candle that we had way back here on the 20th of September. Now, that big candle procured a measured drop, right? You measure that candle up, and you forecast it down, and we bounced off of that pretty much to the tick in the bigger picture. We had a to the tick bounce, and then they tried to break through it and failed, and we are now back in that area again. So with that area being retested, we're back to the lows of that new candle. This is going to be the do or die scenario, right? We were talking about this zone inside here and what the market wants to do with it. They tried breaking above it, but all they managed to do is get into that major resistance, and now they're having a little bit of a hard time again. So it looks to me like this is sort of the area where the buyers really need to show up if they're going to keep this train going to the upside, or they risk losing their grip and letting the market fall all the way back down to the lows. So this is do or die for the euro. Now we do still have a pretty stiff bull trend working its way up. And looking at some of the other price action that we have going through here, pretty obvious to see a nice horizontal level of support or resistance. We had support, resistance all through there. Kind of choppy around there. That around, I guess we could give it a zone with around 18,250 to 260 down to 240. You know, that 10 tick up, 10 tick down kind of thing. This area is going to be an area of interest. And if we can get a pullback and buyers start showing some decent support out of there, we could be looking for continuation to the upside. It's supposed to be an arrow. But if we start finding the sellers really holding this, and to me it looks like they already are, we're already starting to break back down underneath that level. It looks like sellers are really starting to take over here. I don't want to put the nail in the coffin yet until we start seeing the sellers really hammer it down. But for right now, I have to assume that a lot of sellers are building into positions and trying to drive the market lower. And if it does go back up to a high, once again, I have to assume that there's just going to be sellers above that as well. So I don't really have a whole lot of faith when it comes to the buyers right now. We are in a strong bull trend. You don't want to be the first one to the party, but I am definitely concerned for the buy case if they can't start showing up sooner rather than later. Over on gold for the most part is just forming a wedge. We're stuck in the same wedge, and we're getting a little bit tighter on that wedge. Now, the original wedge itself was here, but now that we have a new high, we have an even tighter wedge forming. And they're running out of room, right? The tighter and tighter these wedges get, the less time they have to really kind of finagle both sides, and eventually one side or the other is going to break out. Now, you know, am I anticipating that we get some monstrous breakout up or down? At this point in time, I would be looking more on the sell side. I think it makes a lot more sense that this is nothing more than just a diverged push through the highs and a trap. It makes more sense to find sellers above here trying to drive the market lower. We have major support, major resistance, and we're back here again. This, to me, looks nothing more than a trap. And in all honesty, I think to get the best prices, I would really like to see them break through the highs, right? Get a big old bull candle up, trap in a bunch of buyers, and then dump it straight back down. Would look really nice for a potential reversal lower. Where we stand, though, we are still very bullish. We have a big bull reversal off of the bottom. They blew off the lows. They're overcorrecting it now, but they're getting a little overzealous here. I would potentially like to see that better entry rather than jumping in right now. One thing that would get my interest to pull down a little bit further on gold would be if we can get a breakdown back underneath that level of support resistance at 93.1, retrace and test it again. Kind of like what we had here, gave you several scalping opportunities, even a bounce there. I would love to see that same thing right around there in a breakdown and retest, and that could easily allow the market to roll over and drive back down. Now, we're not in open territory to just free fall. We've got a lot of stuff in the way. We have this previous major swing low that's in the way at around 12, just ahead of 1286, 1287. That is certainly something that we need to keep our eyes on, just given the amount of bull pressure off of there. We also have this as somewhat of a bull kind of spike and channel, spike and wedge, and usually when they come back to those lows, that is another area of major interest, not to mention the fact that that is also previous swing highs and lows in the same place. So at around 1282, we have another line in the sand. If we can start breaking through those two, then we start opening up into free fall territory where we slam our way back down to the lows. But we do have some stuff underneath us to kind of prop the market up. On crude is in a little bit of a precarious situation. We have the longer-term buy holding out beautifully. It's working wonders. It hasn't really done, you can't ask for a much better response than that, and it's been working out gorgeous. Now, we did have a little bit of a trap above the highs, and we're starting to pull back. And one notable thing, this is the first time that we have had a decent pullback, and by decent, I mean something like 50% or more. A good pullback ever since we've held this beautiful area of support. Now, there will be some structure traders, I'm talking swing highs, swing lows, swing high, swing low kind of traders, that are going to be looking at this thinking, well, we just made a higher high, we're going to be looking for a higher low as well. Is this going to be the higher low on this 50% pullback? Maybe, maybe not. But one thing is for sure, we are going to have a lot of buyers in this market trying to pick up this pullback. And that gives us the incentive to stay, well, we had the longer term buyers, they're in, and they've definitely been rewarded. And now we have buyers who are chasing it on the first decent pullback. We could easily have another rally back up to a new high, maybe a little further to the wedge top. Something along those lines is kind of what this is looking like at the moment. Now again, you know, is this going to be the massive rocket ship before it goes ripping higher? Maybe, maybe not. It's tough to say at this point in time, especially given the fact that we have resistance floating through here at 50.68, as well as back above at 51 at 22. But again, we know that we have a lot of buyers in here, and we have a good shot at least making a back up towards the highs and to the high of the wedge. From there, maybe they continue on their merry way back up towards 52s and 53s. We'll have to wait and see. But for right now, it's looking really, really nice for a potential pullback kind of market and rallying back up towards the highs. And then finally on the S&P, we have a very well-structured ABCD triangle forming inside of here. They are missing the highs a little bit, showing some signs of weakness, and now we have a double top failing lower. And that's a big clue, because not only do we have the wedge, a very structured wedge, we're holding the lows all the way through, but the buyers aren't putting enough effort forward, and I know that sounds kind of ridiculous when you zoom out, but I think it's just a case of exhaustion. They don't have enough to put the effort forward anymore to even get back to the highs of that wedge. The fact that we missed it here, not a big deal. That happens, right? They missed it here, but they came back and retested it. When they tried to retest it, though, in the case of the highs, they missed it again, and that is a big clue that we may be running into a little bit of exhaustion on the S&P, and we could end up seeing this transition more into a longer-term range. The range lows look pretty good at around 25.42.5, and it's pretty obvious that the range highs are starting to stick around here at around 53. We may just bounce around there for a little while until we start getting some halfway decent movement, and I can't blame them, right? Especially when you zoom out, they're destined to take a break at some point, and what better day than to do it on Friday the 13th. So overall, I think we're a little exhausted on the S&P. At the very least, if you are still a buyer, which I don't blame you at all, we need to be looking to buy better prices. I would like to see buying pressure around 42.5 or lower down to that retest that we've been waiting for quite a while at 25.38 down to 36.25. But where we are right now, I think we're kind of dealing with Chop City. We're better off waiting for some better prices before we go jumping in. And now we have some signs of weakness telling us that we may be in store for a little bit of a heavier pullback anyway. Now, looking at the news for tomorrow, we do have a couple things on the calendar. Everything is happening at 8:30 for the U.S. session, though. At 8:30, we have the core CPI month-over-month for September, forecasted at 0.2%. Also at 8:30, the core retail sales month-over-month for September, forecasted at 0.3%. And, of course, also at 8:30, we have the retail sales month-over-month for September, forecasted at 1.7%. And that's it. No big news before that, no big news after that. It's just 8:30 and that's it. So it may be kind of an early in, early out kind of day, depending on how the market wants to respond to all of that news happening at the same time, and not much else going on. Now, along with that, for you stock traders out there, even if you're not a stock trader, something to keep in mind, we have some big earnings calls tomorrow as well, something to take a look at. So it's not something that I normally, look at a whole lot, but when I see an earnings calendar like this, and the earnings calendar that I personally like the most is Earnings Whispers. You can use whatever one you want, doesn't matter to me. But tomorrow we have a lot of big names that are coming out pre-market. We have the Bank of America, we have Wells Fargo, we have PNC, we have First Republic. A lot of banks, right? And not just small ones. There's a couple smaller ones in there, but there are a lot of big banks that are reporting tomorrow their earnings, and that can definitely have an impact on how the markets want to move and behave. So we need to be a little bit careful for tomorrow, not only with the news, everything happening at 8:30, but we also have some pretty big earnings reports going on tomorrow as well, and that can kind of kick things up for, again, more that earlier in, early out kind of scenario. Now, taking a look at the cryptos, Bitcoin, oh man, Bitcoin, back above 5,000. We're pushing very aggressively up. Made a high of, what's the high been so far? 53.94.86, so almost 5,400. Beautiful rally to the upside. It doesn't look like it's done. A lot of times these types of moves happen on a good first push. That's the initial breakout where everybody has been in already, and we were talking about that yesterday. Little pennant formation, little pause, continued breakout. These are the secondary investors that are getting in. This is when it starts hitting the news feeds, and now the news feeds start reporting on it, and these are the late buyers that jump in, and that usually means one more test of the highs. So I'm looking for one more test of the high before the night is over, and from there, then we may start looking for a pullback. One big thing that really stands out here is we're finally at the top of the channel, and this is after a very healthy pullback, right? Don't let this monstrous rally up, don't look to buy up here. Now, again, I can't tell you what to do with your money, but if I'm looking at this, we're sitting on record highs, that's the last place that I want to be buying. I want to be buying on nice dips, right? If we look on the daily chart, we can see those dips. Every time we get a beautiful drop lower, 2 legs, sometimes 1 leg, sometimes multiple, that's where you want to be buying, right? That's why we were talking so aggressively about buying down here at 3,000. We may never see 3,000 again, right? Just like the dip down here at around 1,800s, 1,700s, we may never see that again. Now, we're probably never going to see 1,000s again, but if the next dip, we are going to get one, right? We will have a pullback. It always happens. Don't go buying at the highs. It might go a little bit further, but don't hang on to it for too long because you may be buying ahead of a really nice potential sale in the near future. So I'm not saying that we're going to go pulling back $1,000 tomorrow, but it is something you want to pay attention to, that if you haven't jumped on the Bitcoin train yet, you missed the station, I'm sorry to say, but don't go buying at the highs. You may have a pullback to jump on in and get some way better prices than buying all the way up here at 53, 5,400. Now, Bitcoin, as it stands, is very bullish. I am looking for that one more leg to the upside, but from there, we may transition into that range and start getting a little bit more of that pullback back down to maybe 5,000s, maybe even back down towards the 46, 4700s. And I'm sure a lot of people now would like to jump in there who missed that original buy at around, well, yeah, the 3,000, which we might not ever see again. So over on Bitcoin Cash, again, just kind of reviewing it. We're still stuck in the buy area. I'm not really interested in Bitcoin Cash right now until we get the fork. So for right now, this is kind of a dead currency to me, even though it's valued at $300, of course. It's something that I'm not really paying a whole lot of attention to right now. Now, going a little bit further on Ethereum, Ethereum is still stuck in the middle, but we are making a nice level of support or resistance that we might be able to scalp off of, and that's going to be, if we make this a little bit wider here, 303.55. Now, that level is smack in the middle of the range. It's more so just a scalping area. I'm not looking for much off of that. I still think we're dead. I mean, we're dead in the middle. I want a better pullback. I want to buy cheap. I want to buy at least down to 291 before we start looking to really start gaining some aggression. 287 would be even nicer, and of course, if we can dip all the way down to 280s, I would be a very happy camper. But where we are right now, I can't look to do much, but either hold if you already have Ethereum, or just kind of sit on the sidelines and wait for some better prices. Looking on Litecoin, beautiful, beautiful rip to the upside on Litecoin. Absolutely phenomenal. Just gorgeous, right? That's the only way to put it. Litecoin is catching up. We have a gorgeous rally to the upside. That long-term buying area is holding beautifully. We're breaking out of the wedge high. This is what we want to see. Now, one thing that really stands out here, now that we've broken so aggressively up, there are going to be a lot of buyers who bought in here who are going to be taking profit that causes the initial dip lower. That initial dip lower will find buyers that had missed this move up. If they miss that move up, they're going to be buying pretty much any pullback they can get their hands on, and we're looking for a retest of these highs, or at least close to it. Maybe they even finish off the $60 mark. Now, one thing that I like to look at when we have this big kind of switch in guard, right? We have this big move down, and it reverses up way stronger than that move down. I want to measure that move, right? Let's measure that move from the highs down to the lows and kind of see where that puts a potential price objective. A potential price objective is anywhere from this full move up to, 60-70% of the move, which is very common for you fib traders, a 61.8 if you want to cut it in the middle. Now, a 61.8, it honestly looks like we've already hit that. A full projection is further up at 61.5. So if this thing really wants to take off, as if it hasn't already, we're looking for a full projection up at around 61.5. And then from there, we could easily start rallying all the way back in towards the next major level of resistance is in 64, 65s, and then from there all the way up to 80s. So we've got a lot of upside potential here on Litecoin if this wants to take off, and it certainly looks like they have the engines primed. The next potential area of pullback, if you're not aggressively buying this small little one right here, you're looking for a pullback likely at around a 50%. It'd be a retest of that wedge high and get some more buying pressure off of that. But Litecoin, they have the rockets primed. They've already hit the initial ejection button, right? That thing is just monstrous to the upside. Buyers are going to be buying for a secondary rally up. Now, looking at NEO, we're still floating around that sale pricing. It looks like they're trying to make one more dip to the downside, so I'm eyeballing that 26.21 or lower for potential buying pressure as well. But for the most part, we're still just kind of waiting. Buyers are buying in with Bitcoin rallying higher, Litecoin monstrously breaking out, NEO's just kind of hanging out in the middle. We may get a little bit of a trap to the downside, retest some of these earlier areas, and then go from there. But either way, we are in a medium-term buying area, then we start going into long-term underneath that if we can get a bigger dip. So NEO, just kind of hanging out and waiting at the moment. So that's going to do it for the outlook for tomorrow's trading. Good old Friday the 13th. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. We'll have to wait and see. But regardless of the market you're trading, whether it's stocks, options, forex, cryptos, you name it, if it moves and you're trading it, you need to have a plan. So make that plan, trade the plan, follow those rules, and you'll be A-okay. Until next time, we'll see y'all later.